Good morning or good afternoon, Tigers. Today we're going to be taking math notes on page 25 of your notebook. Make sure you draw your Cornell line and that you write your title. So go ahead and write your title as one step and two-step equations. So the thing that I'm going to be teaching you the rest of this week is how to solve one-step equations, and depending on how well we do, I'm going to jump into two-step equations. Now, one-step equations is more 6th grade, 7th grade, and then two-step equations, unfortunately, it's been brought down to 7th grade, so you have to know it at 7th grade, but it's also something that you practice and do over and over in 8th grade as well. So if you can follow along with these notes pretty well, I don't see you having any trouble the rest of this week and next week, and I honestly see you being very successful next year if you can fully follow how to solve a one-step and two-step equation. So I'm just going to ask you for your undivided attention. Don't just worry about copying the notes. I want you to really try to understand what I'm explaining. So on your Cornell line on the left, you're going to write this question. How do you solve a one-step equation? So go ahead and write, how do you solve a one-step equation? All right, so I know this escalated quickly. I told you just to write a question, and then I ended up writing the notes. So go ahead and pause. I want you to put down your pencil, close your notebook, don't write anything down. I want you to fully understand what I'm about to teach, and then pause the video, write everything down, then press play to proceed. All right, so how do you solve a one-step equation? I think it's kind of funny and ironic that one-step equations technically have sometimes they might just have one step, but most of the time they'll have two steps. So step one, combine like terms if any. So if I'm looking at my example, I can't combine anything with x, I can't combine anything with 5, and I can't combine anything with 3 because nothing is being added here, nothing is being added to 5 here other than the x, but you can't combine a letter or a variable with a constant unless it has the same letter next to it or variable next to it. So this step, automatically we're done with it. Now we just look at step 2. It says circle, identify your variable, which is the letter, and isolate the variable. A lot of you are probably looking at isolate the variable and you don't know what I mean. But once I show it, you'll see. So here's my variable. My variable is x. So I circled it. Now, ask yourself, what is keeping the x from being by itself? That is what isolating the variable means. You're trying to get the letter or the variable by itself on one side of the equal sign. Sometimes it'll be on this side. It's the same thing. You just got to get it by itself either on this side or on this side. So the thing that's keeping the x from being by itself is this positive 5. So you have to ask yourself, what's the inverse operation of positive 5? Or what's the opposite of positive 5? And the opposite of positive 5 is actually negative 5. So I'm going to subtract it. All right, and what I do on one side, I have to do to the other. So positive 5 minus 5 is going to get you 0. So now you have x, and then you have 0. So you can either write plus 0 or minus 0. It doesn't matter. The point of the story is you don't even need to write plus 0 or minus 0. You now have x by itself on this side of the equation. Bring down the equal sign, and 3 minus 5. Write it on the side, 3 minus 5. 5 is going to be negative, so if I rewrite that, that's 3 plus negative 5. Those are different signs, so you subtract them. Keep the sign of the bigger number, so it's negative 2. So now, let's write it neater. X is equal to negative 2. Now, a way to check your answer, don't write this down yet, is to rewrite your original equation, which is x plus 5 equals 3. Now let's plug in negative 2 and see if it's a true statement. So we get negative 2 plus 5 equals 3. These are different signs, subtract them, keep the sign of the bigger number, and it's positive, equals 3. Does 3 equal 3? Yes, it does. So is your solution true? Yes, this is the correct answer. Go ahead and pause the video, copy this down. Now continuing with what you guys have, I'm going to ask you to do 2 examples. Try to do these on your own. do not continue to watch this video. So after I write these examples, I want you to try them. So there's the first one, and then here's the second one. Try to solve these. So go ahead and pause the video. My substitute teacher is going to walk around to make sure that you guys are trying to solve this. Don't talk to your neighbor. Look at the notes. Try to do this. At least circle your variable. Try to get the variable alone on one side of the equation. And then if you get an answer, check your work. All right, now that you've done the work, here's what you do. So step 1 is combine like terms, if there are any. Well, there are none in these cases. So I'm going to go to step 2, which is isolate the variable or circle the variable. Ask yourself what's keeping the variable from being by itself. In this case, it's -3. The opposite of -3 is +3. What I do on one side, I have to do to the other. This gets me 0. So all I have left is x equals -5 plus 3. Those are different signs, so subtract them. Keep the sign of the bigger number, and it's -2. Now if I'm going to check my work, I'm going to write down my original equation. And now I'm going to plug in -2 for x. And let's see. Change the subtraction to addition of the opposite. Remember, we're questioning if it's a true statement. -2 plus -3, same sign, add and keep. Is -5 equal to -5? Yes, it is. So is your answer correct? Yes, it is. Now let's look at the second example. Isolate the variable because there's nothing to combine here. 5 is positive. The opposite of +5 is -5. What I do on one side, I have to do to the other side of the equation. That gets me 0, so I have x left over. 4 minus 5 is -1. If you don't believe me, just write it as a statement. 4 minus 5. 4 plus -5. Those are different signs, so you subtract them. 5 minus 4 is 1. Keep the sign of the bigger number, -1. That's my answer. Now let's plug it in. 5 plus -1 equals 4. We're trying to see if this is true. 5 plus -1, they're different signs. Subtract. Keep the sign of the bigger number. It's positive. Then you are exact. 4 equals 4. So x equals 1 is the correct answer. If you got those correct, good job. If you did not get them correct, go ahead and correct your video. This is a good spot to pause so that you guys can have the correct work. If you got the correct answer but you didn't show all this work, you need to copy down the correct work from me. So go ahead and take this moment. If you have everything, sit there quietly and patiently, please. Now, if you have room on the back of page 25, we are going to solve just how to solve two-step equations. So again, you're going to write the question, how do you solve a two-step equation right here? And then I'm going to give you the steps and review it. All right, so unfortunately, I'm out of time and I cannot explain this. So just write it down. And on Thursday, when we come back, I will explain how to solve a two-step equation. Write down the example. Try to understand it on your own. Here's an example for you to try. And if you guys run out of room, go ahead and write on page 26. It's not a big deal. So you try to do this one, if possible. I know it seems like it's the same, but it's not. So go ahead and try the example after you write down these notes. Thank you. Make sure you remember your social skills with my sub. And I really hope that all of you get an A+ so that we can have a fun Kahoot on Friday. But we'll see. Hopefully you guys all get it. Okay, bye.